I used to hate cats, used to be dogs all the way, till a cat came along, changed my tune. Now I say I prefer cats to people, and cats seem to prefer me too.
Hello there, cat people. Dan the Catman here, along with Stephen Quant, Mr. Producer, our cat behavior expert from catbehaviorhelp.com. Hi, Stephen.
Hey, how are you, Dan?
And Michelle is on assignment at the moment, which is a nice way of saying she couldn't make it today, but she will be back soon. And welcome to episode 73 of the Shelter Cats podcast, the podcast created by Shelter Cats. And 3 and change seasons and 72 episodes, we finally have a vet, a real, honest to goodness vet on our podcast. So I'm very pleased to welcome Dr. Mary Manspeaker to our show. Thank you for being on the show.
Well, I'm thrilled. Thank you for inviting me.
Before we get to speak to you, two pieces of business that I have to take care of. One, the Shelter Cats podcast is part of the Chewy Rescue and Affiliate Program. Chewy does amazing things raising money for local shelters and rescues. So please click the link in our podcast description. It'll take you directly to the Chewy website to make your purchases. If you click the link to make the purchase, you will help Chewy in their mission to help rescues and shelters, and you'll also help support the podcast. So thank you, Chewy. Chewy is great. Chewy knows I plug them, and they're big supporters of us. And number two is we have a website now, sheltercatspod.com. That's sheltercatspod.com. Our great new website where you'll be able to get links to past episodes. You'll learn about Team Shelter Cats podcast, and you'll be able to buy merch. We have merch. We believe we have merch. We have hats. We have a name tag. We have a keychain,
Mugs.
stickers, magnets, mugs, hats. We have
Phone cases.
if you have an iPhone or a Samsung phone, you can get a phone case with our logo on the back. It's a clear case, and it's pretty reasonably priced because phone cases could be expensive. So we have merch. You could go link to past episodes. Go to our website, sheltercatspod.com. And also we have a contact form. So if you want to be a guest or have a question that you'd like to pose about our episode, and you don't feel like commenting on the episode, which you could do on YouTube and Spotify, go to our website, sheltercatspod.com. So, Doc, can I call you Dr. Mary?
Sure.
Okay. Dr. Mary Manspeaker is a small animal veterinarian with experience in both shelter and general medicine. A 2002 graduate, she earned her doctorate at the University of Tennessee College of Veterinary Medicine. She also earned a master's degree in veterinary forensic science and a graduate certificate in shelter medicine through the University of Florida. She has practiced in Florida, New York, Connecticut, and Tennessee. Prior to returning full-time in general practice, she spent years working for nonprofit organizations such as the ASPCA, Memphis Animal Services, and the Humane Society of Memphis and Shelby County. She volunteers for a local nonprofit, All Fours Rescue League. That's all number 4S Rescue League, a wonderful organization that helps pets in the underserved community of Shelby County, Tennessee. In her spare time, she enjoys painting. That's one of yours behind you, right?
Yep.
Eat your heart
That
out, Bob
is.
Ross. She enjoys painting, singing, spending time with family, and playing with her 4 cats and 2 dogs in one house.
In one house.
Wow. What kind of dogs?
One is a Chihuahua pug mix, and the other is a little mutt terrier mix. I think he has a lot of different things in him, but they were both shelter dogs, shelter rescues.
Do they get along with the cats?
They do. Everybody gets along.
See, it is possible. It is
Yeah,
possible.
it is.
Um, so tell me tell me the background story of Mary Manspeaker. How did you become a vet? How did you decide to go into veterinary medicine?
Well, I'm one of 10 kids, the youngest of 10 kids, and we always had just animals all around, dogs, cats, birds, fish. We were a very active household and had a lot of pets. And my mother was, um, she would take in any stray that came up. She couldn't stand to turn anything away. And so I grew up, observing this behavior from her and loving animals and always having animals around. And as a child, I had no interest at all in baby dolls. I just wanted stuffed animals, and so that was always a passion for me. And so it was just kind of a natural thing for me to want to work with animals. And so I knew as an undergrad that I wanted to go into some medical field. I wasn't entirely sure about veterinary medicine at that point. So I studied biology and chemistry, and that was my bachelor's degree. It was in biology. And by the time I graduated from undergrad, I knew I was very interested in veterinary medicine. And so I went to work at a small animal practice here in Tennessee. And after a few months of working there, I wasn't quite sure I wanted to pursue veterinary medicine anymore because I started seeing the reality, the really hard work, and so I wasn't sure I was really cut out for it. And so I went to work for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital for 8 years in a research laboratory. But I stayed part-time at the vet clinic as well. And so I continued to be interested in it. And so after 8 years of working in the human medical field, I finally decided I did want to go and pursue veterinary medicine. And so I went to University of Tennessee, and that's that's how I ended up there. Just a basic interest.
So now you're a practicing vet.
I am. I am. Yes, small animal, dogs and cats.
And, and it looks like animal rescue has also gone hand in hand with your journey as a vet. So can you tell us some about that?
So as a new grad, I went primarily into just small animal general practice. And I did that for probably the first 10 years. Yeah, 10 years of practice. I was exclusively small animal. And then, and this can lead into how I met Stephen. When I was working in Jacksonville, Florida, I was a relief veterinarian, and so I was working for a bunch of different practices, and there was a emergency shelter that was being run by the ASPCA. They had confiscated about 900 cats from a hoarding facility.
900?
900 cats.
Oh my God.
And so they put those cats up in a temporary shelter in Jacksonville, Florida. And that's where I was living at the time. And so they needed vets to come and help them with all those cats. And so that was my introduction to shelter medicine. And so it wasn't a traditional shelter, it was an emergency shelter. So it was only meant to be temporary while the cats were, part of a court case. So they didn't have custody of them yet. And so we had to go in and treat those cats and, keep them healthy. And Stephen and I both worked at that shelter. We were called responders, and so we were volunteers, or actually we were paid responders to come and help with those cats. And it was extremely overwhelming for me. I'd never seen anything like that in my career as a veterinarian, but it also I've kind of fell in love with shelter medicine by doing that. And so once that case finished, I kept helping that organization with other cases. And then that transitioned into a full-time job at a shelter in Memphis. And then after that shelter, I went to work for the Humane Society of Memphis. So I just kind of, for about 10 years, I worked in shelter medicine.
I was gonna ask about this always makes Stephen nervous when I throw in questions. Uh, your emotions in a situation like that. I don't the you know I don't know if people ask vets enough about their emotions and how they deal with very difficult situations in practice. But hearing that like one of your initial trial by fires was a hoarding situation with 900 cats in a facility. What was how did you deal with that? How did you emotionally cope?
It, well, probably not very well, to be honest. I felt so compelled to go and help because not only were they needed the help so desperately because there's so many animals, but I'm also, I love dogs, but I'm a cat person. Cats are my heart animal. And
Absolutely.
and seeing that many cats, I honestly, I would drive to the shelter every morning and I would cry and I would cry on my way home every day. And it was very emotional. And they were, I mean, we were caring for those cats in a very appropriate manner, honestly, given the number. And they were loved by the whole staff. They were, I mean, given the challenges of having that many cats, and a lot of them were ill. And so, that was part of the emotional part is that you saw just illness in these kitty cats but you also got to see them getting better. And then we got to see them being adopted. And so the range of emotions was vast. And
Roller coaster of
yeah,
emotions.
for sure. And so that was really an extreme version of shelter medicine, and for somebody who had never done it before, it was very emotional for me, but not enough to scare me off. Some people would come in and they're like, I can't do this. And I would understand that. It's like, this is hard. But and then after a while, as shelter vets, they have to, just like honestly, anybody in a caregiving, industry, it's all hard. You learn how to compartmentalize those emotions, and you focus on, what are you doing here? I'm helping these animals. And so you kind of have to look beyond it. Those,
And just to jump in for a second on the emotional aspects of this, I was going to possibly ask this later, but I think this is a good point to just mention it and pay some respect to the idea that a few years ago, the veterinary profession had a suicide rate that, for the first time, became the leading profession for suicide in this country. And I have another vet friend of mine who had a per diem vet in her office who took his own life with a euthanol drip, I guess, in the bathroom. And I don't know, Mary, if you want to just address that component of it.
yeah. So it's a problem, not just in shelter veterinarians, but just in any veterinarian, because of, they've done studies on it of why is the suicide rate so high amongst the veterinarians in this country, and not just this country, but worldwide. And there's a lot of factors that play into it. And, one of those is just how hard it is to see the animal suffering and the expectations that we have to be able to fix anything, and the financial part of it for the pet owners. I mean, there's a lot of stress put on veterinarians and a lot of challenges for us to try to be able to help the pets, and also access to drugs like what you just described. That's another factor. So it is. I I think that we need to work harder at preparing young veterinarians, even vet students, for the emotional toll and help them better deal with the industry. Mental health is huge. I mean, they really need to just go ahead and learn that this is going to be a challenge, and I need to figure out ways to deal with it from early days, because sometimes the new vets, the new baby vets, they struggle the most. So yeah.
And we on our part, we can say to all of our listeners, when you go to a vet, be kind to your vet.
Yeah.
They're having a hard day, and you don't know what
Yeah.
that hard part of their day is like.
Yeah. And there's an organization called Not One More Vet that has wonderful resources, and it was started because of the suicide rate in veterinarians. And so they have a lot of resources. They have a wonderful Facebook page, a support page. And so that's another thing that is helping, is to raise awareness in general, is helping a lot. And so, but you're right, Stephen, the general public, I don't think, they don't think about that when you're presenting a huge bill, when they're
Right.
emotional too, because their pet is sick, and now all of a sudden they've got this big bill. So
There's a vet who gave a TED talk, and I don't have a link to it. I'll see if I can find it. But, she started describing her morning, which started at 8 a.m. in the parking lot when a vet technician came out and said, emergency, you've got to come help. And
Mhm.
she then describes what sounds like the rest of her day. It is one awful situation after another where one client is bitching because she's late to their appointment. Meanwhile, she's euthanizing a cat who the people couldn't afford treatment for, and in another case is giving free treatment for a cat who they probably should have been billing for. All these things are going on, and it's exhausting just listening to it. And then she turns to the audience and she says, "And you probably think that was the end of my day. No, that was just 9:30 in the morning, an hour and a half later."
Yeah. Yeah. So
I,
it's
I can tell you it was eye-opening for me because when we Steve and Michelle and I discussed, it's always been my desire to have a vet on the show, obviously, as a balance to the rescues we've interviewed. And I said, the first question I want to ask, and again, I'm a civilian, the first question I would ask is, why the hell are these bills so high? And Stephen immediately jumped in with this exact point about the suicide rate. I had no idea. I could tell you, it never occurred to me to think about it from your point of view. It, I've had wonderful experiences with vets. I had a vet, it turned out he was connected to the mob. I've had all different kinds. This little Italian guy in Long Island. He was a great vet, but it turned out, he billed what he billed because,
I
you
think I
know,
worked for that guy.
you probably did. You probably heard him on the news. Really great guy, really, really wonderful vet, but he was a little shady with the billing, and it turned out there was a reason. And that's as far as I'm going to go with that discussion. So, it definitely was an eye opener for me, and it changed my perspective on how I look at vets, and what they deal with in between appointments, during appointments, after, before.
Sure.
Dan, on a happier topic, can I just describe a little bit about how Mary and I became friends? And then
Please.
jump into maybe a couple medical questions. When we first met, to be clear, this hoarding case, the 900 cats, was called Caboodle Ranch, and it was an indoor-outdoor sanctuary run by basically one guy who thought that he could care for 900 cats. Obviously, he didn't. And Mary and I weren't initially, I mean, we weren't friends. We met each other, right? And over time, we started working on cases together. I worked in the medical division and worked pretty closely with Mary, and we became friends. I remember making coffee for you in the morning in the hotel,
Yes,
right?
very good
And
coffee.
I'd put on my hat so you wouldn't see my morning hair, and I'd come over with my cup of coffee. And then on a case, you might remember, Mary, I wonder if it was North Carolina, you taught me how to tube feed a puppy, a
Oh,
gavage feeding.
yeah, yeah,
Mom wasn't nursing well, and she had like 12 puppies.
sure.
And I watched her do one. This is where you learn how to insert a tube down the esophagus into the
Yes,
stomach and not hit the trachea,
that's right. Not
right?
don't go in the lungs. Yep.
Not get in the trachea.
Yeah.
And I watched her do one. She had me do one, and then she beat it for the airport.
Yep, yep.
And
You're
that
on your own.
morning, I'm on my own. That morning, a colleague and I were weighing each of the puppies, and I pulled this one out, and this puppy is cold and unconscious. And completely freak out, but I do what I've been taught. I'm trembling. But I get the tube in her, and we get the food in her, the warm food. And I didn't know at the time I should have warmed her up before I fed her.
Yeah,
Cats can't metabolize food very well if they're cold.
yeah.
But she warmed up and then I guess metabolized the food. And she woke up, and I called Mary, and she said, do this, temp her, bring her back to the hotel. But that moment of horror was, I think, a moment when I started to really become friends with Mary because I felt like I owed her my life. And that whole day was kind of wrecked for me. And I kept referring to the kitten because I kept, deferring back to what I know, which is
Yeah,
cats, not
yeah,
dogs. It's like
yeah.
the kitten, the kitten. But it was lovely becoming friends with Mary, and we've stayed friends all these many years.
Likewise. Yeah, yeah. So,
So I have a quick question for Mary before I go into maybe a couple other things. And Dan, obviously you can chime in whenever you want. Do you want to
I
help?
know that.
As a veterinarian, tell us a little bit about the things that you think we as cat parents can do to help our cats live their healthiest, longest lives from a, a civilian point of view, as opposed to just the veterinary point of view. What effect we can do to help keep our cats healthy?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, obviously, medical care, right? I mean, get their vaccinations and their preventatives, their heartworm preventative, flea and tick preventative, and it's all going to vary based on the cat's lifestyle, right? I mean, as far as which one of these things is the most important. But as far as like husbandry, their environment at home, make sure they have ample fresh water. I mean, I have water bowls all over my house because cats, their little, kidneys are sensitive, and so it's extremely important that they have options for fresh water and give them different options. Some cats like to drink out of a water glass on the counter, others prefer a water bowl on the floor. So I always tell people give them lots of different options and try to figure out what your cat likes in order to encourage them to drink more. Always provide nice, fresh litter boxes, clean them daily. Cats don't like dirty litter boxes. And pay attention to what do things look like in the litter box. Is there anything that looks like it might be abnormal, like a softer stool than what you normally see, or a larger, if you use the scoopable litter, you might see a larger ball of litter versus a smaller, and that can be an indication of some underlying health issues. It's extremely important to give them plenty of enrichment, scratching posts, toys. If you have the ability to give them some outdoor time, like a catio, they have all kinds of cool options now for catios, even just little window versions, just so they can get some outdoor time. Um, so, I mean,
And
that's,
how
yep.
do you feel about food? That's people are told by the pet food industry basically, if you feed your cat our food,
Mhm.
your cat's going to live basically forever,
Yeah, well,
right? That's kind of the message.
sure. So, there is a million different diets out there, right? And so when people, and I get this question all the time, and so I like to base my answers on my own experience. And so I just say, look, don't go to the cheapest diets, stick with more of the middle of the road to more premium diets. And I'll give them a few brand options just to give them an example of what I consider reasonable pet foods. Because I mean, some of them are vastly expensive. So, and some
Do you
people,
want to share?
sure. I mean,
Feel free.
yeah, I've always gone with I like Royal Canin. I like Purina. I like Science Diet. And I have definitely used others outside of that. I don't really want to go with the little boutique type diets because I feel like they can be harder to find sometimes, and you don't want to suddenly switch a diet. Like if you run out of this pet food and all of a sudden you can't find it, and then you're having to grab something else, and then you can end up causing some GI distress from a sudden diet change, and so you don't want to do that. Yeah, so I mean, I find those are my probably top three favorites and brands, and I feel like that they're palatable. I've always had cats live nice long lives on those diets, but it's not just the food; it's everything. It's everything else that I just talked about. But yeah, you do certainly want to feed them um, a good diet. You don't want to go with the cheapest option.
And are there things people should watch for in their cats that might be a tip off that there's something going on other than, the quality of the stool, say, some other things?
Yep. So any behavior change, I mean, we did have a question earlier about kitty cat that started sniffing everything. And so while that seems and likely is something benign, I mean, it certainly could be that that is a suggestion that maybe something's going on with that kitty medically. And so anytime there's behavior changes, are they talking more? Are they vocalizing more? Are they hiding in new places? Are they either being more affectionate or less affectionate? So any behavior change should be followed by a trip to the veterinarian for an examination at least, and then your vet can talk to you about additional testing as needed. Drinking more water is a sign, for kitties especially, because, kitties they drink water, but not usually to the point where you notice it a lot, But if you start seeing a kitty hanging out more at the water bowl, that can be a sign that there's something going on. Larger urine balls in the litter box can indicate that they've been drinking more and urinating more, and you might want to investigate that with your veterinarian. Um, yeah, so I mean, I would just say anything different from what is normal for that kitty. You should probably at least have a conversation with your vet about that because it might
Yeah.
be something.
What's the number one? I don't know if killer of cats is the right way to put that, but I've heard that I mean the cats I've owned, all but one passed from some version of cancer,
Uh,
bladder cancer. She
yeah.
had the squamous cell carcinoma,
Yeah.
which uh, maybe you could talk about that. It seemed to be brewing for a while, and it exhibited itself right at the end with this painful abscess. Is
Mhm.
cancer one of the number one illnesses that diseases that cats face as they age, or is
Sure.
that not really true?
No, it is.
In
Yep. Cancer is a top one. Kidney disease is a top one. Those are two of the big ones, actually. Um, my theory is every cat, if it lives long enough, is going to develop some degree of kidney dysfunction. Um, well, obviously, if something else doesn't take it, but usually they will end up with some degree of kidney dysfunction as an older kitty. And a lot of times that is what causes them to, end up not making it much longer. But yeah, cancer is one of the top ones.
when I mentioned to my rescue people that I know on Long Island that I'm finally interviewing a vet. I got a bunch of questions. Oh, ask her this, ask her about
Yeah,
that. This could fill up an episode. So if you don't mind, I have, and even if you do mind, I have two pretty specific questions that I'd like to ask you. That courtesy of Shelly Betancourt, my rescue friend. I've adopted two cats from her. She's a fabulous rescue, Scarly Second Chance Rescue. So her first question is she's would like to ask you for about to discuss new protocols for FIP,
hmm
what you use to diagnose FIP, what you use for treatment, and to talk specifically about the fact that FIP itself is not contagious. First of all, what is FIP? I don't even know.
So FIP stands for feline infectious peritonitis. And it's a viral disease. So it gets a little bit complicated just because, and this is where people get confused about FIP. There's a virus called the feline enteric coronavirus. All right. It's not like our COVID, but it is a coronavirus. That is a very contagious virus that can cause some nasty diarrhea. Um, Now, in some cats, that virus will actually mutate, and it can mutate and then become feline infectious peritonitis, which is a very terrible, terrible disease, almost always fatal unless treated. Okay. So the initial virus, the enteric coronavirus, is the one that's very contagious. The one that is mutated and becomes FIP is not contagious. Right? Like if you got one kitty cat that has FIP, he's not going to be able to cause FIP in a bunch of other cats. They would have to have that mutation from the enteric coronavirus. Okay. So, and because I mean, it's just an awful disease. There's different forms of it. One form is where they develop these like effusions in the lungs, effusions in the abdomen. They can present with all kinds of different clinical signs, usually just really malaise and fever and not eating, and can look like a lot of other diseases. And then there's a dry form of it where they don't have the effusions, and that one can be a little bit trickier to diagnose. So there's different diagnostic tests for it. The gold standard test would be actually doing a tissue biopsy and sending that to the lab for analysis. But it's it's not always the easiest. It's more invasive to do that, obviously, and a lot of times you have a compromised kitty cat that you don't feel comfortable obtaining tissue, especially if it requires anesthesia at the time, because they're sick already. And so sometimes you have to just base it on your suspicions. And now, if they have the effusions, then you can get a sample of the liquid either from the abdomen or the chest and send that in for testing. And those tests, will sometimes be consistent with FIP. And so there's some cases that are going to be a little bit more easy to diagnose than others. And now in the last few years, we have a treatment for it now that's shown a lot of success. And it's it's not cheap. There's different compounding pharmacies that have different pricing structures for FIP, but it is definitely it's a lot better than it used to be. Used to be basically it was a death sentence if a kitty was diagnosed with FIP. So at least now we do have some treatment option for them, which is great.
I had a stray that his name was Frank. He had FIP.
Did he?
Uh, I had him TNR'd, and he was basically the mayor of the block. And it seemed to hit him pretty quickly. He
Yeah,
became lethargic. His stomach was very distended
yeah, yeah,
within days, and I had to have him trapped because you could not approach him.
yeah,
And I brought him to a vet, a town vet, where I am, that will treat for low cost. And they said FIP, and there was no hope. That was
yeah,
my first exposure to it. It's just it hit him so quickly,
yeah.
just because he was out and
Right,
about, you
right.
know.
Yeah, and stressors, I mean, it's like shelter cats, as you know, are subjected to more stress. And so that can make the illness, any illnesses actually worsen. Um, so some people have said, well, why is it that some shelters seem to have more cases of FIP if they can't transmit it directly from cat to cat? And it could be, well, this is a population of animals that's very stressed out. And so they're going to be more likely to be, to get sick. So, yeah.
I had a friend who called me. Her beloved cat had been diagnosed with a wet form of FIP. This was way before the new treatment was available, so it was a death sentence.
Mhm.
And she told me that, and this is, going to make you angry, Mary, because it makes all of us angry. She found a vet who promised a miracle cure with a special vitamin drip that was going to cost a lot of money.
Oh,
And I start talking to her, and I'm like, no, this isn't true. It's
mhm.
not real. I'm so sorry, and and she goes back and forth with me and back and forth with me. I'm getting kind of more emotional about it because she's about to try and prolong her cat's suffering in order to save her cat who can't be saved.
Yeah,
And I finally basically turned to her on the phone. I said, why did you even call me?"
yeah,
And in tears, she said, "I called you because I wanted you to tell me I needed to euthanize my cat."
yeah, yeah. Some
And
people
then
need that. Some people
she
can't,
did.
yeah, they can't make the decision without someone they trust telling them it's okay. Yeah, I had an FIP case years ago that the young owner just she couldn't say goodbye, and so we just kept draining the kitty's abdomen and trying to make him more comfortable for as long as we could, and we did eventually have to euthanize him, but it was very hard because I knew and I kept telling her that we can't, there's no treatment for this, and so, but she just wasn't ready. She needed a little more time, and as long as
Can
we could
you
be comfortable, yeah.
can you talk a little bit? There are some common shelter illnesses like FIV and FELV.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about them and the adoptability of cats with either FIV or FELV?
Yeah, sure. So, FIV is, well, both of them are, viral diseases that can be transmitted from cat to cat. FIV not as easily as FELV, which is, well, FIV is sort of like what we call the AIDS, cat AIDS. FELV is feline leukemia. So leukemia can be transmitted a little bit easier, like through sharing water dishes and grooming and just, and bite wounds. And then FIV, it's not as easily transmitted from cat to cat. So you still, with both of those diseases, in the shelters where I've worked, when every cat gets tested for those diseases, and then if they're positive and they are clinically sound, they're healthy otherwise, then we'll try to find them a home, you know. And then obviously you have to warn the adopters that they could give this to other kitty cats, and so they need to use caution. And you need to try to find an appropriate home for them where they are not putting other cats at risk, but it's not a death sentence, either of those, and so it just comes with, while they're in the shelter, they need to the other cat population needs to be protected from them, and then when they go to their home, there needs to be a long discussion about the disease and what can happen. Yeah.
Certainly at my shelter here in New York City, we adopt out both FIV and FELV cats, and we'll adopt out FIV cats to homes with other cats with counseling.
Yeah, with
So
counseling.
I think there's some people, or at some point, they kind of referred to FIV as the unfriendly illness and FELV as the friendly illness, in the sense that what I mean is that FIV, you have to pretty much bite or get a real wound to transmit it.
That's
And
right.
that FELV cats, they can be really friendly with each other and still transmit it.
That's right.
And so that obviously has an impact on how they get adopted, but we definitely adopt out both.
Yeah. And we always did too, but just making sure, it's like any animal that has a medical condition, counseling is necessary for the adopters so that they know. Yeah.
Do you want to talk at all about, because I don't know very much about Memphis Animal Services and the state of shelters in Memphis as compared to either New York or elsewhere in the country. Obviously we both worked for ASPCA around the country for quite some time. And if you'd like to address any of that.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges that Memphis Animal Services has is that, like so many municipal shelters, is the resources. I mean, they've done a lot regarding, partnering with organizations that can provide services like the Bissell Pet Foundation, and finding grant money to try to help with different programs and on. So they've come a long way as far as going from just your dreadful municipal shelter where practically everything that goes in there doesn't come back out, to now having a better live release rate, better husbandry in the shelter, better disease control. I mean, they're still facing challenges because there was a number of years in the city where the stray animal population was not being addressed as aggressively as it should have been because of just attempting other methods that have become popular as part of the no-kill movement, where you were trying to rely on the community to help take care of some of the strays instead of just automatically pulling them into the shelter. And so in theory, that's great because it means you're encouraging the public to help with the stray animal population. You're offering food, sometimes even dog houses, medical care, trying to do anything you can to prevent the animals from entering the shelter system, providing spay neuter services and all this. It really didn't work very well. And so now we are overrun with stray animals in the city. And the shelter is now trying their hardest to clean up some of that. And what that means is that more animals are entering the shelter system now, and more animals are being euthanized in the shelter system. And so they've got a long way to go to try to figure out, how can we fix this? How can we make this situation better? They are currently in between medical directors, and they don't have a staff veterinarian. And so there's so many challenges there, which is why I'm going to use as much time as I can to go back in and help them so that they can, get these animals adopted.
Hmm. Nice.
The other, so that's our one city shelter. Okay. We have the Humane Society of Memphis and Shelby County is a limited admission nonprofit. And so they're a great shelter, but they're small. So they're very small, and so they try to help the city shelter as much as they can, but their capacity is low and they just, they can't really do a lot for them. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a struggle for sure, for sure, and we do have spay neuter ordinances. It's hard to enforce them,
Hmm.
when your manpower is spread so thin.
That's familiar.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
So
the number one complaint, I think, in terms of angry clients at the city shelter where I work is when someone comes to reclaim their dog and we tell them that in order to reclaim, we have to spay or neuter their dog.
yeah, yeah.
And then they get oftentimes, very upset with us.
Do you have the option of letting them purchase a fertile permit?
What permit?
A fertile permit so they
No,
can,
what is
okay.
that?
No,
What is a
so
fertile permit?
fertile permit is a permit that will allow you to keep your pet intact. And so it's
No.
supposed to be
Um,
reserved for people who have like a breeder's license, right?
we do not, including if you have a breed animal. We do waivers for spay neuter based on medical condition and age, and that's it as far as I know.
Yeah. They still allow them to purchase fertile permits, and it's for people that are trying to reclaim their pets. And in my honest opinion, it's not expensive enough. It's not enough of a deterrent. It shouldn't, well, my opinion is it shouldn't be on the books at all, that the
Right.
pets should be spayed and neutered before being released, unless, like you said, there's a medical reason. But so that is unfortunately an option. And not a lot of people choose that option, because they don't want to pay several $100s to reclaim their pet. But it's still an option.
We actually charge them for the spay neuter.
Oh, yeah. No, we don't. Our city shelter does not.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, there is a reclaim fee, but
Yep.
it's kind of like it doesn't necessarily cover all the expenses of all the services that are provided for their pet.
And we do a lot of surrender prevention as well,
Mhm. Yeah.
as you know, it doesn't always work.
Well, it works a little, right? And in some communities it might be great. It might really help dramatically, but in other communities like such as Memphis, I mean, we just don't have enough to keep up with the number of stray animals, and and I know we're not alone. A lot of communities are like that.
Maybe we should put your phone number up on the screen so everybody who needs some help can call you.
Before I ask my next rescue question, do you want to talk about All Fours Rescue League?
Sure, yeah. So All Fours Rescue League is one of my favorite rescues, and they are local here in Memphis and Shelby County. They're a small team, but they do some really great work. They actually go out into the neediest communities where we have the largest stray animal populations and the poorest people, and so they will deliver dog food, dog houses, they'll help fix fences. They will pick up animals and transport them to be spayed and neutered and then pick them back up and take them back home. And that is
Wow.
all for free.
Wow.
They hold vaccine clinics often now. I mean, it seems like they're doing that at least quarterly now, where it's all free. And so they'll have like public free vaccine clinics and microchip clinics, and so they are just doing amazing work. And I just love them. And
That's
Nice.
amazing. If we had the time, I would interview every rescue
yeah,
in the country, in the
yeah,
world. So it's always, we've become very familiar with our area, New York, New Jersey, even Pennsylvania. So it's
yeah.
nice to hear the dedication of rescues not in our purview. So that's awesome.
And
Uh,
all
uh,
fours is, yeah, they are 100% foster reliant. They don't have a facility. So and that's challenging, of course, for all rescues to try to find enough people to take in the animals that they find that they're trying to help.
seems like a never-ending problem is getting people to not only foster, but not to just say, I can't anymore.
Yeah, that's right. That's
I
right.
know all the rescues face that.
They
That's
do.
their biggest, that and money for vet bills, sorry, seems to be the biggest need, top
Sure,
two needs.
sure, for sure.
And
Yeah,
I mean, we always say that you can't adopt your way out of the problem. It's not good enough to just get them on the way out of the building. You have to address the coming into the building and the entire community.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. It's there's no shortage of the need.
So the next question, the second question I got also from Shelley, it asked if you could discuss the differences between shelter med and regular practice med, specifically when it comes to vaccinations of kittens that come in.
Sure.
Uh, uh, she will vaccinate a 1 pound, 4 week old kitten, and then every 2 to 3 weeks until they're 4 months old, as opposed to 6 to 8 weeks in regular practice medicine. She asked if you agree with that and if you had an opinion on that.
For the most part, I agree with that. Certainly in shelter and rescue situations where you've got more animals. So, the more it's herd health in shelter medicine, right? And so you got to do everything possible to keep the whole population healthy. And so vaccinating at an earlier age, at 4 weeks, is definitely the standard for shelter cats. So 4 weeks, and then every 2 to 3 weeks is fine. We are usually 2 weeks, but sometimes you have to stretch it out to three. But within 2 to 3 weeks, they need their booster shots, and some sources actually recommend it to extend it out to 18 to 20 weeks of age. Now, in private practice, because the risk to the animals is typically lower, as far as being exposed to infectious disease, we will usually wait until they're about 6 to 8 weeks old for their first booster shot, and then we'll do every 3 weeks until they're 18 to 20 weeks old. I still tell people 18 to 20 weeks old. So there's that's the main reason, though. The main difference in the way we do it is the risk factor, their exposure to infectious disease.
Okay,
Do you,
thank you.
do you do you find, Mary, have you seen this at all, that the anti-vaccine movement in this country with respect to human vaccinations has translated at all into animal vaccinations or not so much?
I don't know that it has anything to do with the anti-vax mentality as much as just negligence, honestly, because I mean, I don't get I don't see many people coming in saying, I just don't believe in vaccines or I believe they're harmful. I don't get that very much. More than often it's because they just simply didn't do it.
I have to admit, I've always wanted to ask someone who got bit by a rabid animal, would they be willing to take the rabies vaccine?
Oh, yeah.
Right? If an
I
anti-vaxxer,
would.
right? Would Because I have a funny feeling that anti-vaxxers would be right up there at the front of the line to get
Oh,
a rabies
sure,
vaccine.
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I don't see it as much in the veterinary industry, you know. So
I'm going to sneak this question in,
sure.
and then I'm going to give you the floor in a moment. Um, one of my cats does this too, and it's more behavioral, so Stephen, feel free.
Mhm.
Uh, one of the questions came in was, why does my cat sniff my other cat's butt all the time? And my Vance, he was a colony cat that came in via a week stay at a vet. Uh, he does that a lot too. He is as soon and he's lived with them almost 4 years, but he'll still like follow them around sniffing their butts. Correct me if I'm wrong. To me, I just call it they're checking each other's email. And the question is, should I be concerned about the fact that my cat seems to do that all the time? Is it a concern? Is it something to be concerned about? Both of you.
Steven, you want to go first?
Sure. Cats have glands all over their bodies where they have pheromones and other scents that communicate different things having to do with sociability, territorial issues, sexual issues. And so, yeah, there are interesting things to smell down there and interesting things to learn. Cats, when they scratch, outside in nature, they're going to scratch a tree, right? It's not just that they're laying down a scent that's in their paw, uh, telling another cat that they've been in the area. It's also a temporal thing. The cat who's visiting goes, "Oh, that cat was there yesterday. He must be gone now. I can come in." Right. So there's all sorts of things going on there. But I don't see it as an issue so long as they respect each other and don't, get overly demonstrative. But I'm happy to hand it over to Dr. Mary.
Yeah.
Dr. Barry?
Well, I see it the same way that, I mean, my cats do it all the time. They do it all. It's almost like any opportunity they get where well, they don't go out of their way to do it, to smell each other's rear ends, but if it happens to be a convenient thing to do, that's exactly what they want to do, is put their nose right there. And they've always done it. There's nothing unusual about, like, or new about that behavior. And so I think if the time I would be concerned would be if this is a brand new behavior, um, that could indicate there's something abnormal going on with the other cat, like if they've got an anal gland abscess or, something else going on back there that's particularly interesting to the kitty that's sniffing it. Um, so, I think that would be my only reason to be particularly concerned about it.
And it's worth noting that cats don't have pejorative feelings about these scents. They don't think that, that's a good scent, that's a bad scent. It's not like poop smells bad. Cats, it's not, there's no value judgment here, right? Like we have value judgments against bodily odors. And cats just think of it as, enrichment in a way. But, there was another question, Dan, that came from another person, a friend of mine, who mentioned that her cat has started very recently started sniffing everything, like all over the house. And I asked her, is her cat sniffing with her the mouth closed or the mouth open? Because they indicate different things. And she said both. But I'm curious. I don't know of a medical. I was curious, is the cat pooping normally? Is he because he's digging, and
Oh,
I was like, is he looking for a place to go? And she said, no, his stool is normal. But I'm curious, Dr. Mary, if there's anything you see in this that we should talk about.
so he's digging at an area, then sniffing it.
I saw some of that in a video, but he's also just investigating um, scent or things that he perceives as scent around the apartment. And she says nothing has changed.
Yeah. You know, it seems fairly benign, but again, if it's a brand new behavior, he's never done it before, and all of a sudden he's just randomly just showing, and there's nothing else going on that she can see. I mean, I've heard of dogs that'll chew through a wall and to find termites, like they might sense something there that we don't see. Um, I would recommend that she have the kitty examined, just have a
Yeah.
consultation with her vet just to make sure there's nothing else. Because any change, whether it be subtle or whatever, if you don't have a reasonable explanation for it, then it's a good idea to just talk to your vet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just mentioned again the artwork that's behind you, which is so lovely. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about how you came, before we run out of time, how you came to paint, because I also have a painting of yours I want to show in a second.
I don't know. I mean, it was probably about 20 years ago. I mean, I've always been interested in art. Like years ago, I took like a little sculpting class, and so I've always had that interest. And so I just decided a number of years ago that painting sounded fun, and so I went and bought some paints and some canvases and just started messing around. And
Can I show one of yours?
yeah.
It's hard to get the camera to focus on
I
it, but you
love
do this
that.
beautiful, beautiful thing with animals in your paintings. I'll go a little closer about that. And I just love them.
So that's Jenny and Cricket. That's your two,
Right. Yeah.
your place in Maine. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, obviously animals are usually the subject of my paintings. And this one, the one in behind me, I don't know if you can see or not, but the cats all have their ears tipped. So they're all
Yes. Now that you mention
they've
it,
all been spayed and neutered. So this is supposed to represent a feral colony of cats.
maybe we'll sell
Nice.
some of your works on our website. We'll
Oh, that's
commission you.
awesome.
We'll commission you
Oh,
for paintings.
okay. Okay.
Um, Dr. Mary, you're now our show's official vet by default. So thank you very
I
much.
like it.
Uh, something I like to do when I remember is I like to give the floor for the last minute or two to our guests. Uh, Basically, hosts shut up and we'll give you the floor. The biggest thing you want anybody listening or watching this podcast, as a cat owner, I guess, and a dog owner as well. What's the biggest takeaway you want people to have from an interview with a vet or just in preventive care in general? What's the biggest piece of advice you want to give?
So I want people to know that veterinarians are there for them. Okay, I know it's easy for people to think, they're just all about the money because the bills are high. Every aspect of veterinary medicine is expensive. Getting the degree is expensive. Running a practice is expensive, and so unfortunately it does hit the pet owners. Um, but veterinarians are there for you. They want to work with you and within your budget. They just want to help your pet. They want to help your pet stay healthy for as long as possible. And so if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to, try to find a local veterinarian, obviously, if you don't have one. And if you have one, if any questions you might have, any concerns you might have, just call them. Sometimes they're going to say, I need to see the pet because they need to see the pet. They can't give any advice without seeing the pet. So understand that's actually a law. They have to have a relationship with your pet before they can give any medical advice. And so don't think that that's just them wanting the money. That's something they have to do. But beyond that, they're they're there to help you have a wonderful relationship with your animal and to help you keep your pet healthy and happy for as long as possible.
And I want to
Well,
just add that, I find that vets are compassionate, loving people who care about our animals and about us. And I certainly know from becoming friends with Mary that that's 100% true with you.
Yeah. Well, you as well. I
uh,
appreciate what you guys are doing.
Dr. Mary Manspeaker, thank you so much. How can people find you?
I work full time at Pet Vax in Cordova, Tennessee. So, um,
We'll put the link to the
yeah,
website.
sure, it's the one in Cordova because there is a number of Pet Vax in the area. So I'm at the one in Cordova.
Great. Thank you so much for being on the show. Stephen, thank you for bringing this together. Our website is sheltercatspod.com. Go on there for past episodes and merch. We'll have Dr. Mary's links in our podcast description. And for Stephen, if you'd like to make an appointment with Stephen, catbehaviorhelp.com. He does online consults. He does in-house consults now, correct,
In
Stephen?
person, yep. In New York
You,
City within a certain radius, yep.
we will take a trip to Tennessee with my cats if I need to have them looked at. I'll get to
Yep.
see Tennessee and we'll get to meet and I'll film it for content. So win, 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 win. Dr. Mary, thank you so much. This has been episode 73, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Bye for
Thank you,
now.
Mary.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
I used to hate cats, used to be dogs all the way, till a cat came along, changed my tune. Now I say I prefer cats to people, and cats seem to prefer me too.